son. Bit by bit, the older that we get, the faster it ticks. Time flies. Whoa, whoa, time flies.
Good afternoon. Hey, Lyndall here again with the Marshfield Old School Times, and coming to you this afternoon on July the 5th. It's Reunion Fest Day once again, our 14th annual. Fantastic weekend here in Marshfield, Missouri. The big Independence Day parade that we had yesterday, and of course the fair and the rodeos going on. It'll be going on again tonight, and tonight's the final night with that. But for us, it's Reunion Fest, and it's such a great time. We're so honored to be able to bring folks home and reminisce and get together for their class reunions. And so this year we have two folks that are here for their class reunions, and they happen to be brother and sister, and they grew up right down the street on Jackson Street right here in Marshfield. Kris Hartley Cook. Kris, welcome.
Thank you.
From Georgia, right?
From Birmingham, Alabama.
Alabama. Okay. Well, that's all down south, you know.
Right.
And then we got a northern guy here from Kansas City, our brother Miles.
Yep.
Miles Hartley.
Overland Park, Kansas,
Overland
actually,
Park.
but Kansas City
That's
Metro,
close
right?
enough.
Yep.
And Kris has graduated in 1975. It's their 50th class reunion. She was the president, so she's helped put this thing on tonight. And then Miles, the class of 1980. And you guys are out there in the what we call the old sewing room building, and you got classmates out there right now getting ready for that event. Yeah. So it's going to be a fun evening. We expect 350, maybe 400 people. Who knows? We got 3 live bands. Some good folks that you guys will enjoy if you come down. You do not have to be a graduate of Marshfield to come to Reunion Fest. We encourage all adults. We encourage friends and folks that join our communities later in life that are friends or whoever. That's what it's all about. It's getting together. So we also have 4 food trucks here, so you can eat your dinner while you come down here as well. So with that, we're going to kind of get started just like we always do. We like to kind of start at the beginning. And you two guys, as I said, grew up here in Marshfield. So Kris, why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about growing up in Marshfield and your family, your folks, and Miles, just chime in when you want to.
Okay.
This is a real casual, easy deal.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, Miles is kind of the boss of it, but and I wasn't the president. I think Marty was, so you'll get in trouble.
Well, you're the president by default. You're the one that's helped put this on. So.
President of reunions, maybe.
Yeah, there we go. Do it that way.
But yeah, we grew up mostly in Brooks Furniture Store, where our grandparents, Thad and Lola Hartley, had a furniture store. And we were talking last night about how much we loved to crawl on the carpet rolls, which we were forbidden to crawl on because we could die in them, and we spent our entire life on those rolls of carpet. But I guess we had we went to the Christian church, pretty regular going through school.
Yeah.
I don't think, he had a few, we were talking last night about his injuries over the years. And I got out of it without any broken bones and spent a lot of my time up in a tree in the backyard. You probably remember more than I do. I'm old.
Well, that was the big thing, is we were always outside. I mean, that was back in the day. Mom said go, and we would go, and we'd be going from early until late, and it was pretty great. As I think you've said in one of your other casts about being city kids or the square kids, because
town rats.
There was so many of us that our families had businesses up on the square, and we would all just run around and hang out, and it was our big playground.
And your parents, you might mention your folks. Tell who you belong to.
Yep. So our grandparents was Thad and Lola Hartley. They had the store first. And then Dad, Richard Hartley, and Mom, Avis Hartley. Dad took it over and ran it till, I don't even remember when.
Late 70s, maybe early 80s?
Yeah, probably something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they
I'm
were.
going to turn this air conditioner down. I'm afraid it might be drowning us out. Just a second here. Sorry, I should have done that before.
Well, when we were safe, we could walk anywhere we lived. We could walk to town. I used to kick a can. I remember I stashed this Schlitz malt liquor can because it was kind of a squarish can, and I had to read to the kids at the library on Saturdays, and I walked to town. I remember, the neighbors probably hated that. Like dinkity dink dink dink,
Right.
kick it
Yeah.
dinkity dink dink dink, and then I'd hide it at the library,
Right.
kick it all the way back home, and I kicked that can around, for a whole summer at least.
It's amazing, isn't
But
it?
you're
Yeah.
safe.
Mhm.
It takes a village. Everybody knew
Right.
who that kid was walking up
Right.
and down the street.
Right.
Oh, they were. I mean, we had so many families or parents, technically,
Yeah.
friends and everybody knew everybody, and so you just kind of, I mean, your
Right.
family,
Same
all
deal.
of
and,
them.
and we lived out, up over close to where McDonald's is, over there, and in the third grade, rode our bikes to the square.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
8 years old,
Right.
Summer after third grade. So, I mean, it's amazing. But like you said, our parents knew where people lived along the route, and they knew that if we had trouble, we could go to any house, knock on
Yeah.
their door. And
Well, we're sort of not allowed, like he said, we weren't really allowed in the house. In the morning, you got up and got dressed, and you were outside, running feral, I guess, and streetlights come on. Avis had this whistle. God, even when I was in high school and I was playing tennis up on the courts, we lived on Pine Street on the hill. Down below us was the new swimming pool, and up in the hill was the courts. And she could whistle me home. That woman could whistle.
We'd be at the pool, and we got 3 whistles. If we got to that 3rd whistle, we were in trouble. So it
You were
was
going
like,
to hear your 3 names.
yeah,
Miles
yeah,
Allen,
yeah.
Hartley.
I mean, so we knew it was when we heard the first whistle, it was time to start getting out.
So
and
you lived
getting-
on Pine Street. Your grandparents lived on Jackson.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
That's
And then-
right.
Yeah. I had that wrong at the beginning. But
Well,
your dad ended
Well, you're
up.
close.
Your dad ended up being.
Yeah,
on
Dad
Jackson. I
ended
know
up
it's later
living in
years,
there
certainly. Yeah.
after the grandparents
Right,
passed. So
yeah.
he lived there too. So I lived there while I was in high school with him. So, but yeah, we lived on Pine Street. We lived on Locust and Burford. Burford. I would keep saying that wrong.
Burford.
We lived on Washington Street. We lived out on the
We
highway.
lived in the house where R.A. Barr lived. We had that house, and they had the house. No, wait. Yeah, they had the house, and we swapped houses with them. We moved into each other's house. No, I guess we had it, and then they needed it. I
That's
don't
too
know,
young for
but
this
then
part.
we moved to like Washington, and we moved out. That was a really nice big house, kind of set nicely on a huge lawn. As kids, we just went where they took us, but then we moved to 636 South Washington. And it's where I learned to deathly be terrified of propane tanks. Tim Dugan's house across the street from us had a propane tank, and Brooks Gas was filling it. I was sitting out there playing in the front yard. And I guess the guy took his mind off of it for a minute, and it blew like a pop-off valve.
Oh wow.
When it shot straight up, and it scared me so bad I couldn't go around a propane tank
Yeah.
for 15 years after that.
Yeah. So who were some of your buddies that you run around with? You remember some of those?
All the
Friends that-
band nerds. Cheryl Erb was my bestie all the way from kindergarten on.
She married Marty Robinson.
She married Marty Robinson.
Both in your class.
Yeah, and they've done it right, and we'll see them tonight. And
These are
looking
good.
forward
Yeah,
to
Marty,
it.
he made general in the reserves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I looked through, I've got a big box full of memorabilia. I was looking after it this morning. I've got the article where he made Brigadier General, and I've got stuff out of the newspaper, obituaries for people's parents. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got, you might like to look through it.
Yeah.
Anything you want out of it, you can have after
Well,
tonight.
that's nice. I appreciate that. It's interesting, and we want to preserve history. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to get some stuff in the cloud now, but it used to say down on paper and filmed, so people can, our future generations, or my kids and grandkids down the road can look back. Just imagine if we would have that information.
Oh,
Oh, this is the
absolutely.
greatest thing that you're doing.
Well, thank you. It's just it's a labor of love. I don't make any money or anything like that, but it's sure a fun time, and I enjoy it. I'm glad I'm able to do it right now. So we're going to continue to do it.
And it's nice for us that don't live here anymore.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I moved right after high school, and I haven't ever moved back here, but that doesn't mean I haven't lost.
Right.
I haven't lost my connection here. I still have friends, and we come to and I love coming to these things. Coming to the I mean, I marched in the parade for 4 years, played concerts in the. I mean, it's kind of ingrained. It's who we are. So, and it is great that we have always kept that forth tradition of everybody coming, and this is the time when everybody comes and really
We're pretty
enjoys
unique.
it.
I don't
Yeah,
think there's too many
I don't think
communities
they're.
would have what we have.
Yeah,
So
I-
we need to cherish that.
Brilliant.
I just noticed that this was the 146th year of the parade. That's
right,
just incredible.
Right. Yeah, there's so much about Marshfield that is so good. It was such a great place to raise kids and families, and we
Yes.
are in the Bible Belt, and we did have good influences around us in our
Yes.
community, and the community still does. Not saying there's not things out there that tug at people, but it's
You
really,
also knew if you did something wrong, it was going to get back to your folks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, unless you give one of the Waters boys a little money, to
Well,
keep it out of
sure,
town.
yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, right, but you were gonna. It was gonna get back to them.
Yeah, it would.
I just thought of something about the house on Pine. Do you remember when they built the Lutheran church and the chimes?
Oh, the chimes going
Oh,
on.
I'd be-
Yeah.
We didn't have air conditioning, so the windows are all up, and
Right.
I'm trying to practice my clarinet, and I was like, bing, bong, bing, which was, no telling what that cost them. And the chimes were
They
loud.
They played for years. They may still play. I don't
Yeah,
know.
You think they
played-
still got
They
them?
played for years. I mean, like up until just not too many years ago. I don't know if they do
I
still.
need to
now.
go. We need to ask
Yeah,
Shannon. She
yeah,
goes to
yeah,
that.
yeah.
The other thing that we liked about Pine Street was Dr. Blinn lived right across the street.
Yeah, I know where you lived. Now. I remember now where you lived in that big house.
Yeah,
I
and
think Curtis Singer ended up in it at one time.
He did.
Yeah,
He and
later in
Karen
life.
lived there. I don't know who has it
I'm
now.
not sure, but
yeah.
I had the Cunningham. It was
Uh-huh.
the Blends, and then a friend of yours. What was their last?
The Birchfields.
Birchfields,
The Birchfields, yeah.
and then the Cunninghams, and
Yeah.
then Scotty Richardson
yeah.
lived. I mean, it was a great
J.C.
road.
Cunningham's back there getting ready
Yeah.
with Debbie.
Yeah.
today.
Well, yeah,
is
because
he?
Debbie's in
Yeah,
my
in your
class,
class,
so
yeah.
she'll be
Yeah.
there. So you were talking about friends and stuff
Uh-huh.
like that. We had different. We had that crowd of when we lived at Pine. I mean, Stan Gentry lived around the corner. The Lawsons lived around the corner. The Laymans lived around the corner. Scott Pope didn't live too far away, and John Chapman. I mean, that we had all that, and the Birchfields and the Walkers, and everything,
Right.
and that was our running crew
Right.
during that period. We would camp, do camp outs in somebody's backyard, or we would Nerf football. And the Thomases, a little further
Oh,
away,
yeah.
but the
Oh, yeah.
Thomases over there, we were playing wiffle ball or
Oh, yeah.
Nerf football, or just constantly on our bikes all over, or going to the pool. And it was just, it's so ingrained in your memory. You just,
Right.
you just don't forget that
Really
stuff.
you became part of that, made you who you are.
Yeah,
all of us
absolutely.
did.
I declare
Absolutely.
a foul. I was weeding the garden all that time. You were playing wiffle ball.
Picked rocks that grew every year.
They'd
And mowed.
They'd plow that humongous garden. You go out there and burn your bare feet. My job was keeping it weed free, which is why my
It was huge. It was a very large garden.
Avis
And we
was
hated
in self sufficiency.
Yeah.
Right.
So you guys, you graduated, then you went south, and I assume you went up in north. You want to kind of
Well,
tell us a little bit about
I
starting your
I
career?
did a few things. I mean, after I left there, I went to Warrensburg, University of Central Missouri. Continued music. I wasn't a music major, but I continued band and orchestra and all that stuff and everything. Left that. Came back to Springfield for a little bit. Then we worked for Hammond's Hotels.
Oh yeah.
And then went to Fort Smith, Arkansas. Opened a hotel down there. Then after that, moved to New York actually, because my degree in what I did was broadcast film and theater.
Okay.
And I worked with a television motion picture lighting company in New York for 3 years, which was crazy because I was traveling all the time. After that, I got engaged to my ex-wife now, but she said, "Yeah, I'll marry you, but I won't move to New York." So we moved to Atlanta, and when we were in Atlanta, they were in the area down there and everything, and we were there, and then moved to Overland Park in '92, and I've been in Overland Park ever since.
Gotcha. That's
So,
a long time.
yep.
What was your career there?
Well, I was mostly project management. I worked at Sprint for 10 years.
Oh, really?
Was IT project manager.
Out there where they want to put Arrowhead?
Yep, that exact spot. Yep, I was on that campus. That was just a crazy time. Then did some more project management, and then I really flipped gears. I helped take care of our other set of grandparents that lived in Ava, and then Dad went through the whole dementia thing. He lived with her and everything, and
Right.
I kind of just, I wanted out of corporate. I wanted to do something good. And so I decided to buy into a home caregiver company. Franchise, yeah. And the problem was I opened it 6 months before COVID hit.
Oh, wow.
So I made it 4 years,
Yeah.
but I just didn't have the backing to try to do that. So,
You did it, yeah.
so I closed it, and now I'm an admissions coordinator for a skilled nursing community.
Oh, okay.
So
Awesome.
keeping in the same
Same
frame of that, and I love it.
Right.
I love helping
Sure.
families that their parents. I really enjoy talking to the families because they're the ones that walk in going, "What do we do?
Right.
We don't know what to do," and so that's where. I mean, a lot of experience with the grandparents and dad and everything. I can help say, okay, it's do this, and we get it figured out and get them in there. So
Almost
it's
a mission. That's great.
yeah, I really enjoy it.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I
Any
kind of
children?
Nope, no kids,
kids?
no
Okay.
kids, nope.
Yeah. Well, Kris, how about you when you went to Alabama?
Well, yeah, I did a life of low achievement for a kind of a long time, and then people started going to Atlanta. Mike McDonald went, and then
classmates and so
Eric
forth.
went, and then Al went, and Phil went. Like everybody who was cool was in Atlanta, so I went to Atlanta too, because
Because
they
you were there. They were
well,
there.
they were all working in tool and die, and they were
Yeah.
making what I considered an absolute fortune. And so I got on with a construction company, Shepherd Construction Company, and they had me as a receptionist for a long time, and then they decided to send me upstairs and teach me bookkeeping. And that's when books were books.
Yeah.
We had a safe full of, these great big black books, and we had sharp pencils and big erasers.
Yeah.
And so I rode the MARTA train after work 2 or 3 days a week and got a degree or worked toward a degree at Georgia State because it
Okay.
goes straight into
Yeah.
the state government building and you could walk to Georgia State.
Wow.
So I was working all day and getting my degree. And then,
How long was the train ride?
oh gosh, it was only,
Oh, not too
25
long.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could.
Okay.
They have
not
a
too bad.
great train system in
Yeah.
Atlanta. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh yeah, it's the greatest.
Yeah.
And so then I met my daughter's father, and he was from Alabama.
Yeah.
And so I got hired, and they shipped him to Tuscaloosa, and I got hired as a job site secretary, and he was the superintendent on. We built JVC plants, huge, humongous jobs. He was 25, I was 27.
Something. Yeah.
No, he was younger than 20. He was 21, 22. And they put him as superintendent. And so, anyway, so we worked together and then got pregnant with Jenny. So I quit working for a couple of years. And then he started his own contracting company. So we lived in a real small town in Alabama. And she came up to 6th grade. Well, I had started taking her to little dance lessons whenever she was 2. I mean, just out of diapers. And it turned out that really caught with her. So we moved to Birmingham so that she could go to a school of fine arts.
Sure.
It was a public school. We didn't have to pay for it. And
Wow.
so she got her high school diploma, and then she went off to Chicago to Columbia College, which was like also an arts school.
Yeah, absolutely.
She got a double major. So anyway, after that, I didn't make it with her dad either, as is my habit. And then I was in Birmingham, so I worked
Yeah.
in Birmingham. So, and I'm working for a flooring. I retired, and then they called. The company I had worked for said, this flooring company just lost their bookkeeper.
Yeah.
They're dying. Can you help them out? So,
Like retail flooring or something? Or also?
gym floors, Covington
Gym
Flooring,
floors, yeah.
that did athletic flooring. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm still working.
Yeah.
And sometime in there, I got a degree I went back to college, and I got my degree in speech language
Oh,
pathology.
wow.
And I got in the master's program too. But Jenny's dance career went one way, and me getting a master's would have had to have gone the other way.
I see.
So now, oh yeah, and somewhere in there, I decided to ride a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I was
We've seen
50.
you on Facebook.
I was 50, and I thought my father always forbade me to have anything to do with anyone with a motorcycle. And I thought,
So
I'm
that's what I'm
50,
going to do.
Yeah, right.
and he's got dementia.
Do you note that rebellious streak in her?
And so then I got involved in motorcycle rights. So now I'm up to my eye teeth in state and federal. I'm on the board of a federal motorcycle rights organization.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a different kind of people, a different set of friends, and I've got friends all over the United States.
What a great weekend deal that you
Yeah.
can do to get away and do things.
And sometime in there, Dad wrecked, and,
Right.
and it became apparent that he wasn't going to be able to take care of himself.
Sure.
So I moved him in and planned to write a book about that. That was a 7-year
Yeah.
odyssey.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help him when the grandparents got sick because I had Dad. Couldn't leave him. He'd rolled 2 wheels of his van up a ramp of a lawn care trailer that they had taken their lawnmower off of.
Yeah.
He ran 2 wheels on it, and he just rolled that van on upside down. He didn't have any ID, so Meals on Wheels was supposed to let me know if he wasn't home when they took the
Yeah.
meal. They launched it and took off. So I had Pat Hobson going in to check on him at 6 p.m. And she called and she said, "Your father's not here." And his lunch is sitting on the counter. We called every hospital. We called the state patrol. He was under John Doe because nobody knew who he was. So I
And
got
he
my
couldn't say it.
tail up
Yeah.
here. And I'll never forget the social worker at the hospital said, "I'm about to write you up for elder neglect." Because Shannon was in town, and
Yeah.
I just took for granted that he was doing fine. I mean, you have to keep an eye on your older parents.
Yeah.
And I was not keeping a very good eye on
But
him.
you weren't up here.
And I wasn't up here.
Yeah.
And she said, "This man needs to be taken care of." And
Yeah.
I said, "I pledge you my word.
Yeah. Yeah.
He will not be alone
Yeah.
another minute in his life." And he
Yeah.
wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
Never alone another minute.
Yeah. You never know where life's going to take you, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then he died of COVID in October.
Was it COVID, really? Wow.
But he was going to
Yeah.
go
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
COVID
yeah.
just kicked
Sure.
him over the
Sure.
edge.
Sure.
He
Well,
had
your dad,
pneumonia.
of course, I knew him, and he was sort of like you. He had a lot of energy. Appeared, was life of the party, fun. Always positive. To
Always.
me. And I think that's probably where you get some of those characteristics, and Miles, you as well. Maybe it's great to see people like that because they're fun to be around. You like being around them. I just knew your dad. He sold coffee for a while, and back
He
I worked
did.
for Don Stockton too, and
Yep.
and I was acquainted with him a little bit there in the trucking industry and so forth in the early days. And
When he
anyway,
lost his
just
ability,
a good guy, just a really good fella.
Yeah.
when he
Fun.
couldn't really make conversation,
Yeah.
he would walk from window to window in his house and say, "It's a beautiful day."
Isn't that great?
And then in 5 minutes, "It's a beautiful
Beautiful
day."
day.
I put that on his
Yeah.
headstone
Yeah.
in the cemetery. The
You
back
did?
of it.
Really?
Yeah, the back
That's
of it.
awesome.
You can go see it.
Yeah, that's great.
They can make a picture on him now. And
Yeah.
he loved sailing and he loved the ocean. He considered himself quite the old salt. So it's got an ocean scene and it says it's a beautiful day across it.
So he got to travel and do things a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not much.
Well, they did. I mean, they did.
Couple of trips.
Yeah, they
You
used
got
to
to go
down.
on one.
Yeah.
They used to go down to like the Virgin Islands
Oh,
and
yeah.
Acapulco
Yeah,
and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So they would travel some back
Right.
younger,
Yeah.
still in school
I
type
see, I see,
situation.
yeah.
So, yeah,
In a
Cool.
previous life, he was a sailor. I promise he was.
it's
Well-
funny. And I just saw that you had Don on
Yeah.
not too long ago. He's like another father.
Sure.
to
I'm
us,
sure he is,
and
yeah. It was a
Great, and yeah, he was good to always a good friend to Dad
Yep.
and things like that. And actually, he gave me. I worked at Marshfield Drayage. That was my first
Oh, did you?
job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
working with Don over there.
Yeah.
I was helping take freight out of trailers and put them on the
Yeah.
little trucks and then cleaning, sweeping trailers and all that stuff during the
Right,
summers.
right.
As I got, when I could and got older and could drive, then I started pedaling freight around town
Yeah.
on that. And yeah, I was always another way to get to see and meet other of the store owners and things like that, like the Millers that had the Sears store,
Right,
and Alan. Oh, he just passed.
Alan Dennis.
Yes, Alan Dennis. I loved going out and seeing
Yeah.
him and delivering stuff for him, and
Yeah.
there were just so many people that were just great to
Right.
to do.
I've often thought a lot about that and had discussions with others, but every town, it was just it's a story full of characters. You know, everybody's a character.
Right.
Your dad was a character. You know, Alan Dennis is a character.
Yeah.
Don Stockton. They all have their own. I mean, we all are. It's everybody is a character in a story. You could write a script and it would be interesting.
Right.
You know, now there would be murders. There would be, you know, all kinds of weird stuff. You know, divorces. There would be.
That's a cool concept. It's kind of
Really-
like
it really would.
a tapestry that's woven, and
Yeah.
without every thread, it would have a hole in it.
That's
we
exactly
talked
right.
we talked about Mildred Jarrett. We hung out and
right.
talked last
Jarrett,
night.
yeah.
We-
Jarrett's was great because Dad would say, You need school clothes. Go over there.
That's right.
And I'd go over there and say, Mildred, I need this or that, and she'd go, okay. And she would whatever and
Right.
everything, and it was all done. Okay, and then she put it on the tab, and Dad would and nobody had to go with me. Just
Right.
Mildred knew.
Yeah.
And
She'd give you a handful to go home and try them on.
yeah,
Yeah.
Bring back what you
Right.
don't
What you don't
buy.
have, yeah.
And then we were just talking about all those stores like Mary's, Casey at Mary's Variety. I mean, oh my gosh, I don't know, because one of my best buds is Joe Brooks, you know, and Brooks Gas. You know,
Right,
we would do all of our stuff up, and we were constantly on Saturdays. I'd come up with Dad, and he'd of course be, and we're just going all over. I mean,
Right.
Laverne Hartman, Jerry's dad, and
Insurance.
I'm wanting to say, one was Debbie Brown. Her mom, I think it was Patsy. Brown, had the salon right next door too.
That's right. Yeah.
And you know the Aarons, Rob Aarons, and that group and everything. We just all kind of
Right.
we just kind of had time running around the square and running around town and doing stuff. But they were all great people, and they didn't care if we came into any of their businesses and you know hung out for a while. And like she said, we played on the back carpets in the furniture store and
Water fight.
we talked about back in the day. You probably remember this too. On the last day of school was the water gun and water balloon fights.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it was like
to the square.
Yeah, everybody went to
square.
the square, and there was the water balloons, and there was the squirt guns. I mean, what a great! That's another one of those. It's so etched in your memory. It's like I don't know how long we did it. Didn't last. I don't know how many years after I was kind of doing them, but it was great.
Yeah.
Everybody, they all had their gun stashed because you couldn't have them at school because everybody had them stashed. And everything, and we got out like a half day, and then we just go terrorize the town, and the town was okay with it. That was the other thing. They didn't care.
Right.
You know.
But you were talking about those merchants. I mean,
Johnny's.
Johnny's.
every
Yeah.
one of those merchants that you talked about almost had a kid in school.
Right.
The age, it was funny. Now, you had Johnny Andrews, you had Earl Shields, and they were older, maybe Mr. West. But no, Bill West had already bought Shields. So, you know, you had the West, you had the age range, 5 or 6 years. Every merchant had kids.
Yeah.
So they all understood and all knew.
Right.
And,
We talked about
the
the-
Fosters had the
Yeah,
appliance store.
right. And then they
Before
bought.
that-
That's right. They bought
Furniture
Brooks
store.
after
They
they
did,
bought
yeah.
Dad out.
Foster's
That's
Fine
right.
Furniture.
Yeah, that's right.
And we talked about the pool hall where I was, and so I made a wide berth around the pool hall. I wouldn't even walk past it.
You were forbidden, but you
I was
didn't sneak
forbidden.
in every now and then?
Never.
You never
We
did?
would every
Never.
once in a while to go
Yeah.
get a soda
I
or
was
something.
I was kind of forbidden too.
Yeah, we all were.
But I mean,
Everybody was.
well, and it really, the main reason is because of the cussing. That's the main reason. There's just a lot of cussing going on.
I
Right,
just
right.
couldn't. To me, that was the den of iniquity. And that was people's dads too, probably,
Right,
But
right.
being a girl, it was a little different.
Yeah.
He was able to go do all that, but my parents were. Well, I guess it was Avis was more. Girls did this. The boys could do anything. And, I told him, and he didn't even know it until yesterday. I was forbidden to ride outside the yard on a bicycle. And he had this killer racing bike. It was a Lejeune. And I used to wake up at the crack of dawn, sneak out, steal his bike, ride all over town, around the square and out by the country club, sneak it back in, put myself back to bed. Nobody knew. Nobody knew any
We
different.
didn't sneak out and go to the pool at night, did you?
Yes, as a matter of
I
fact.
want to talk about that.
I don't know who
I want to talk about
Yeah,
that
yeah.
because this
It's kind of
is
in your backyard over there
another.
on
Yeah,
Pine Street.
it was when we lived on Pine Street. They'd open the pool down there, and we literally could just walk down that big field back there, and we would come out at a fence, and we came through the fence, and we were right at the pool. So one summer, We had swimming lessons. Going down in swimming lessons. Get there, and there's a whole bunch of... No, this is the newer pool.
Okay, yeah.
So we had a whole bunch... There was a whole bunch of people standing around the deep end. Deep end and everything. And so we're walking up on it and everything, and they're all standing looking down in the pool.
As Mr. Teenberger was down
Right. And so they get up there, and there's this thing in the bottom of the deep end of the pool, and it was, you remember the big wig?
Oh, yeah.
Big wig out on it was they had those big fiberglass, the A&W,
oh, yeah.
Papa Burger, Mama Burger, everything. So Mr. Teenberger was at the bottom of the pool.
Well, they'd put him on the high dive, and there
Right.
was only one way to get Mr. Teenberger
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Now I do remember.
Oh yeah, listen to
before,
this.
before your time, probably the night that the Burger family ended up on the overpass.
Oh, it went lots of places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was I think it was a Halloween night, and they were stored behind George Barnes's barn over there at Washington and Jackson. You know, the barns.
Right.
And he had gotten them somehow because they had been on the big wig at one time, but
Yeah.
George had them back there. And one night, a bunch of guys are like our ages, right? Our era, probably some of your classmates actually, not mine.
It's possible. That is highly.
'Cause I'm just a year behind her, by
Yeah,
the way.
right.
Anyway, so they ended up on the overpass, and boy, I just remember actually Dean Whitty and when Eric Burke and Dean Whitty were on the show, but way back the second show I did,
Yeah.
we talked about that, and you would have had to have been there to understand Dean Whitty's expressions and the way he expressed it. But he's like, oh, there comes Detective Lurvy. There's Detective Lurvy. Joe Lurvy was a volunteer fireman. All the volunteer firemen, you know, they were the first on the scene.
Figuring out how
And
to
the
get it
si-
off the
And the sirens were running. Detective Lurvy, look, he's getting in the overpass. And of course, they all had to go out there, and everybody was, looking for who did it and how they got there. And
Right.
of course, we're all sitting at the townhouse looking up and going,
Right.
Well,
that
Mr. Teenberger, we all taught. I was there in the morning because I worked at the pool. Janie Kiesling swam down and put her arm around Mr. Teenberger and we took pictures of her. Coach Siebert worked there at that time. Because when I took my WSI, when I took my safety class, I had to save Coach Siebert. That's like saving a gun safe.
oh my gosh, oh my goodness.
I almost
that'd be a job.
drowned.
That would be quite a job.
To be a lifeguard, though, you had to pass it.
Yeah.
Larry Anderson, I guess, that was my first employer, was Larry and Annette Anderson. I made 57 cents an hour working in where you got the candy bars.
Yeah, the
concession stand.
right.
And then I moved up to basket room, taking tickets, and after having to clean out the bathrooms.
But you remember the old pool too, right? Don't you?
I remember the old
the
pool.
old. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Which they built right on the side of that creek,
Yeah.
so that all the chlorine could get. And that creek was so alive anyway, full of leeches and crawdads.
We'd go
built
down there.
1938. It was 38, and Dr. Tommy allegedly was like one of the first, either the first lifeguard, or supposedly
At that old pool down in the
old
park.
Pool. Yeah, he was in high school, and he was the first lifeguard.
I did not know
That's
that.
why they named the new pool after him over there.
I didn't know that either.
I didn't even know there was a new pool. I drove today. I was driving down
you
around.
didn't know it was down there?
No, I went down. Where's the pool? And then I had to Google it and see it's out past the
years ago
golf
they built
course.
the new pool.
Yeah, I didn't know that they built the new one. So, but yeah, the pool was big for us because
Yeah, it was big.
that mom would give us money and say go, and we
Yeah.
would just be there, most of the day, and that's
Right.
where everybody hung out. It was great.
Well, we didn't have. Of course, we had the Ritz when we were little, but I don't know if it was probably still operating by the time you came along.
I seemed like maybe saw
Maybe a
one
little
movie
bit.
there, but not many.
But other
yeah.
than that, that's the
That
pool
was-
about all we had
yeah.
in the summertime, other than playing ball and stuff.
But, yeah,
But
yeah.
it was great. It was a great time. Just hard to understand if you didn't grow up here what it was like, I think. And again, the people. It really wasn't. Kids are going to be kids. Kids are all kind of the same, sort of. I mean, there's different characters, but it was the parents, it was the adults, it was the grandparents. Your
Right.
grandmother, Mrs. Hartley. My mom and dad built a couple new houses. And they couldn't go anywhere. They had to go see Mrs. Hartley for their curtains, and she would help them match the colors. And it was like she was the expert,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and she she was looked upon as being
She was
the
like
expert.
the interior
She was,
decorator
she
of
was.
Marshfield.
You couldn't go
She
to
was.
anywhere in Springfield. We had to go let Mrs. Hartley help us select all of that. And,
And
it was,
Thad-
it was character.
Thad was a quiet thing. He just pretty much got bossed around by her, and if you remember the kind of drapery rods that you
Yeah.
pull and they go this way.
Yes.
Well, some people wanted to be fancy, and all of them go that way, and talk about an inscrutable mechanism for how to do that, and he could do it. He was probably the only guy in
Oh,
the
really? He
county.
actually made
He
them-
could
made them
take
make
that
them
business apart and make them pull whichever way
Really?
you wanted to.
Huh.
And I'd watch him
That's
and just absolutely marvel
Yeah.
at the man.
Yeah.
He didn't have a lot of accolades to his name, but what he did, he could
Right,
sure
right.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys, we're obviously at the stage of life, all of us now. What do you see going forward? You have obviously you do your motorcycle stuff. You're going to continue to do that as long as you can.
Funny you should ask.
Yeah.
I am being a real chicken heart, and I want to move back to Marshfield.
Yeah.
And within and it's going to happen.
That's awesome.
As soon as I find
That's
a
great,
place
Chris.
to live.
Good. I've
I'm
got some
coming-
more help for
Yeah.
the union.
Yeah. There you
fest.
go. Right.
I'm coming home. And part of it is because the state motorcycle rights organization that I'm on the board of, I've done it for 14 years. They will let you volunteer as long as you'll do it. And you say to people, someone needs to step up.
Uh-huh.
And everybody's like, well, you're doing such a great job.
Yeah.
You can do it. You can be this and, the
Right.
treasurer, the secretary, the membership chairman. And so I can't do it if I live out of state.
Oh,
So my daughter has accused me of being a real chicken. I'm like, hey,
Uh-huh.
whatever gets you there.
that's right. Well, does Missouri have one?
Oh,
Yeah.
don't you
Oh yeah,
go there.
I told the president of the MRF I was gonna move, and I said I'll be in Missouri. Don't tell four, which is Freedom of Road Riders,
Yeah.
which I'm deep friends and I'm a member of.
Yeah.
But he was like, I've sent smoke signals. I am not gonna get roped into volunteering at that level
Yeah,
again
yeah.
because I can't ride the
Time
motorcycle
consuming, yeah.
because I'm always
Right.
setting up the booth somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
time
I
consuming.
said I wasn't going to get political. I'm not getting political, but I do have to ask you this because I was in the state legislature in Missouri, and so I was in there when we passed the no helmet law, right? And it was a big deal, and I'll just tell you, I voted for it, I voted against it, I voted for it, I voted against it. I think I finally did vote for it, but I so give me your thoughts on that, if you don't mind.
Here's the thinking on that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ride 1 inch without a
Yeah.
full face
Oh, I wouldn't either.
helmet.
I wouldn't either.
But America was founded on an idea of freedom.
Yeah.
That underpins
Right.
everything.
Right.
And I can talk to you for an hour and we don't have that kind of
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
But to boil it down, freedom.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what to
Yeah,
wear.
and that's pretty much why it passed, And
Thank
and
goodness.
Yeah, it did, and of course, but part of the dilemma at the time, I know, as the testimonies would come before the committees and so forth, you had guys that would go through Arkansas or whatever state next door,
Kansas.
didn't have to have a helmet. And
Kansas
get to
does.
Missouri, you got to put your helmet on, and
Yeah.
cut the corner and take it off again. And
Yeah.
it was almost one of those things where let's get some consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Well, it really hurts you as far as tourism.
exactly because
Mo-
people would avoid. They would
Yeah,
avoid,
yes.
right?
Motorcycle
Right. Yeah.
riders spend
Yeah.
money. They
Right.
go places,
Right.
they see
Right.
the
Right.
sights.
Right.
Maybe more than
Yeah.
car drivers. I mean,
Yeah.
almost every motorcycle rider I know goes on a big
Right.
trip
Yeah.
every year.
Well, and
No,
they
I-
also go to the smaller places because they want those back roads. They want
Yeah.
those. So you'll see them pop up, a whole bunch of them in little towns.
Right.
Because they want to go on those roads. They're not going on the highway. They don't want. That's
Well,
not fun.
People wreck their cars and die of traumatic brain
Sure,
injury.
sure.
But nobody's asking. It would be wildly unpopular for people to ask car drivers to wear a helmet.
Right.
And the people who want to put a helmet on us, again, I say I wouldn't ride without a helmet on a bet,
Yeah.
but they're the people who don't ride.
Right. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
I have
Yeah.
ridden without a helmet in Arkansas.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, the freedom, but also I was terrified.
Yeah.
What if I fall over
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
So I would fight for your right to be free to wear whatever you
Right.
want.
Right. Right. Well, that's kind of how I think Missouri looked at it and
Good for you.
Eventually, again, it
Took them 38 years.
well, yeah, and I wasn't up there that long, but I mean, it came up within a 5-year period or so. Probably the time I was there, it was passed, but it's one of those things. We do have to have regulations, but on the other hand, depends on who it affects and who's around it and so forth. You have to protect the innocent, like you would in many cases.
Well, you make it over 21,
Yeah.
which I feel
Yeah.
like yours probably
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Some states require a certain amount of health insurance.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that it's interesting to hear a perspective from someone that actually has been involved, a long time in that industry.
It's funny because so Missouri is no helmet now, so
Yeah.
Kansas is helmet.
Oh, it is.
So
Okay.
it's funny because I live within 3
And
miles
Illinois
of the
is
state
no
line,
helmet.
and so they're like, "Oh, they have to carry the helmet with them in case they cross over into Kansas or whatever like that." So it's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna put my helmet on, I'm going over to." I've heard
I'll
lots
ask
of
you a
complaints
question.
about that. Sure.
Even the score.
Yep.
So, what do you think about the Chiefs and the Royals?
Well, of course, I love the Chiefs. I had season tickets for many years, from '92 till they started getting too expensive and was losing.
Right.
loving the Super Bowls, loving what we're doing. Royals. I grew up down here.
Right.
Down here was St. Louis Cardinal baseball
right.
country. So
That's right.
I'm actually a hair more of a St. Louis Cardinals baseball fan.
Sure.
Love the Royals too, of course. Hated the '85 World Series, of course, but because both of them was on it. But I think
But
the
as far
Royals
as the
are doing.
stadium tax. And
That whole thing.
As far as losing,
yeah.
losing you live in Kansas.
I
but-
do. I think it ought to stay. I definitely think the Chiefs ought to stay there.
Yeah.
If the Royals want to try to move somewhere, fine.
Yeah.
But it's a great complex,
Yeah.
and there's plenty of parking.
See,
and
coming from somebody that's on the other side,
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that because
Yeah.
I'm the same way, and I'm not in the legislature anymore. However, my good friend John Black was in there and is in there, and many it's controversial because
very.
it's being spun as a tax break for billionaires because the Hunt family is going to. But it's no different than a TIF, a tax increment financing. If a Walmart comes into town and they got to build some infrastructure to be able to serve that facility, look what it's going to do for the economy, and that's really what it is. It's a TIF, and it's going to be based on the income of what it's going to produce, not income that's now going to be pushed that way.
Well,
So
they messed up the original whenever they put it to a vote. They didn't sell it well at all, and that's why it failed.
right,
But I've always thought that, like I said, Royals could move because that just gives the Chiefs more of a chance to maybe have that to themselves.
Right,
Of course, on the Kansas side, we've got the NASCAR track, and they're building some great things over there, and it would be cool to be over there,
nice
or it would be
complex.
cool to be, up north. I didn't like the downtown one where they were trying to put it right
Royals.
in the just because there's no parking,
Right.
and it's and Kansas City's still kind of a mess to get around in. So if it were in an outlying area,
Clay County, I think.
or
Okay.
wherever, I think that would be okay. But
Well,
I would just assume they stay where they are.
I think it would be a travesty if they left Missouri.
Yes, absolutely.
And crossed the line economically.
For all
I do.
if they've always been here. So
Right,
right.
So that's a good perspective coming from someone that's from Kansas. But we should mention your sister. You just have one other sibling, right?
Yeah, Shannon.
Shannon.
You should mention Shannon. She's probably watching. Hi, Shannon.
Yep.
Hey, Shannon. Yeah, she'll be here tonight.
Yeah, good.
I've hung out with her a little bit already
Now,
on
what year
this
did she
trip.
graduate? Do you remember?
She's 3 years younger than me.
3 years younger. Okay,
Right.
83.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she's really interesting. She works for the Acupoint Health Clinic.
Oh, out here.
And
okay.
and
great.
she has taken me on a tour through that place.
Yeah.
And
They must do awful well. They got a nice facility over there.
beautiful building.
Yeah.
Clean. I'm really impressed.
Yeah.
And I decided that next time I come, it's $175 for them to work you up. They, I guess it's Chinese, Eastern medicine. They get a hold of your pulse and they read it 4 ways and can tell you all kinds of stuff.
Really?
And what was so interesting, and she gave me a lot of anecdotal stories. Thursday evening or afternoons are slow for her, so I like to go hang out up there.
Yeah.
And she's told me a lot of stories that have kind of blown my mind.
Huh.
And the Amish, go
use it,
there.
yeah.
They utilize.
Because
they
it
don't-
doesn't use.
Right.
No
Yeah,
insurance. Yeah, right. No insurance.
Mhm.
You know, you have to just pay.
Right.
But
It's kind of organic, I guess you
Yeah.
might say.
Yes.
Like
Right.
that's what the Amish.
Yes.
it's
you know,
it's
yeah.
herbs. You know,
Yeah.
ancient formulas. Super impressed.
You know, if it
I-
makes people feel better, right?
Right.
If it doesn't
Well-
hurt you and it makes you feel better, then-
Right.
I don't think my friend Phil Bicycle would be upset if I said that he had some health problems that it took a while,
Uh-huh.
but it worked him out.
That's awesome.
You know,
That's
they
great.
even, they showed me, when we got there, Shannon was in the water room, and they've got this machine, and it'll make alkaline water or acid water. You know, it's all foreign. It's
Right.
concepts
Yeah.
that I'm not into, but Shannon is real knowledgeable. She doesn't do any of the medical stuff, you
Yeah.
know, but I'm really fascinated at what she
Yeah,
does.
that's great.
And
That's
yeah,
great.
she's doing great. She's awesome.
Good. And she was married to was it
Michael,
Yeah,
Michael.
Bertaldi,
one of the
which
Bertaldi
was passed
boys.
Which was my class. Yeah.
We had
Yeah.
Doug in our class.
Yeah,
Michael was
right,
younger,
right.
just shy of
Another
his.
a great Marshfield family, you know.
Yep.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Oh
Her
yeah,
mother was she was a sweet
Stalwarts
woman. She
of
actually
the-
was in my mother's class. They were
Oh,
the
really?
same age, Yeah.
oh
Wow.
the
Mrs.
Mrs. Bertaldi?
they were in the
Yeah.
Class of 51.
Was Jack-
Just 51.
the dad Jack Bertaldi.
Yeah, there was 2 Jack Bertaldis, but
Were
that,
there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Shannon's never been the same. That was the love of her life, and it just broke
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
But she's, you know, I love watching as her life develops too. So
Yeah.
I almost said, why don't you come too? But I three's a crowd. I know when everybody's
that
trying
would
to
have been
talk.
just fine, absolutely. You talk about your daughter. Do you have grandchildren?
I do not.
Okay,
No.
okay.
My daughter
Would you-
my daughter has a partner that I adore,
Yeah.
but she's works for Red Bull,
Yeah.
and they just run her
In
insane.
Atlanta, or
She
Birmingham?
lives in Chicago.
Oh,
She's in
oh,
Michigan at the
okay,
moment.
Okay.
They send her all over the place,
Uh-huh.
and Red Bull's a big sponsor at the big festivals, Coachella, all the
Right,
big music
right,
festivals,
right.
and so they always build something like unimaginable.
Yeah.
You know, the money they put into
Oh,
these
yeah.
things is insane, and so it's her job, load in.
Yeah.
All the coordination, all the
But
building
we'd
crews.
probably accept Red Bull's sponsorship if we want to.
Oh yeah. There you go.
When you get to move to
Yeah.
Marshfield, get your daughter,
Yeah.
hook us up.
Oh,
I mean,
my.
So
we
if
could
we're
have
going
a
to do
Red
that,
Bull
though, we need
Sponsor for the reunion.
Yeah.
Yes.
we need 4 more bands because it's going to go till 4 in the morning.
well, that's okay.
Because everybody's going to
Yeah.
be wired.
Make sure
True
the-
story.
Make sure the little old ladies over here across the street
Yeah,
will understand.
right.
We'll have to give them a little Red Bull or something.
Yeah,
You know, we
right.
can
Yeah,
do
give
that.
them something.
Well, because there's so much competition in the energy drink field
Yeah.
that they have to stay on top of the. I know. Are we getting almost?
No,
done?
you're good. I just want to check. We're 12 minutes out.
Okay.
Goes
Yeah.
by fast though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It's fun.
So she's,
Yeah.
her life is gone. All she does is work.
Yeah.
But
You get to see her though.
yeah.
Good,
She
yeah.
comes home every now and then.
Do you motorcycle up that way?
No, not on your life.
Not that far.
Not on
Too
your
far,
life.
Yeah.
Ask me if I even drive up that way.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
No, but once I get moved up here, it's a little closer.
Yeah.
I might get
That's
to.
exciting that you're going to move here.
I
Yeah,
can't-
I'm
happy
excited
for you.
too.
Yeah.
I want a reason. I don't get down
You want a
here.
spare bedroom? You want
Yeah,
to
right,
spend the night on your
right,
Union
right,
Fest night. I
right.
understand.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. So
Yeah.
keep your eyes open for some land.
Yeah.
I don't want much. 30 acres with a spring and a nice house. And
Under 100 grand.
Hey,
you know?
a shop building would be
Can't buy
nice.
30 acres around here like you used to.
No,
It's
yeah.
probably more like
No.
Birmingham. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I
It
saw
really
Randy
is.
Clare. I've been
Yeah.
knocking on Doug Andrews' door.
Yeah,
I saw
yeah.
Randy Clare yesterday. I'm like, keep me in mind,
Yeah.
man.
Randy will be here tonight. So, speaking
Yeah.
of that, is there any classmates you want to plug that's going to come that you'd like to mention? I know you mentioned Cheryl and Marty, and is there anybody else that's
I've got a whole list of people who are coming.
Anybody that you used to run with that you're excited to see, or
Oh
just-
well, Cheryl and Marty.
Yeah.
Cheryl and I ran hard, and we were locker mates all the way
Uh-huh.
through. And she used to get me in more trouble. She couldn't stop giggling. Cheryl got the biggest sense of humor, really, of anybody I've ever met. But yeah, I got a
My
bunch.
favorite was scare Cheryl and just get, go anywhere and everywhere,
Here's something-
5 year younger
5-year
little brother,
kid, yeah.
Here's something to mention, though. Stacey Atkinson is going to live stream.
Yeah, I'm glad you
say
did.
that.
Yeah,
say
yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
Well, Stacy, yesterday at the stage of the 4th of July celebration, he and I both were there and visiting, and he asked me. Well, he'd already called me prior about doing that because you have another classmate, Daryl Day, who can't come, and Daryl is
And also
Stacey's
Carrie
cousin.
and Jolene.
Carrie and Jolene, okay, and which I think they came last year, didn't
They
they?
did.
74 one, so. But anyway, so Stacy asked me. I said, absolutely, that'd be great. So this will be a first.
Yeah.
To broadcast that on the web TV, the Marshfield web TV site that Stacy has. So all of you out there that aren't coming tonight, we'd love to have you come. But if you can't, if you just tune in to Marshfield web TV, like if you were watching a Blue Jay game on Stacy Atkinson's TV site, and they're going to broadcast from the old band hall. We call it the Depot Building, the class of 75's reunion. So that'll be a fun deal.
Well, and they can only do 2 hours, so we'll probably crank it up about 5:30 or so. But the live stream will be from 6:30 to 8:30.
Okay, good.
MarshfieldWebTV.com.
Yeah, Marshfield web TV.
I did want to, our class, our main driving force is Paula Caulfield Birchfield.
And she's down there getting the wheelie ready as well.
She has been.
Yeah, she's been great.
She's been
Yeah.
our rock through all the seasons, and it's a big shout out to her. I know Susan Pruitt helps a lot too.
Susan's down there, Debbie
and there's
Cunningham.
and Debbie Cunningham. They've been the ones that have put everything together. I don't know the list of who's coming.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I think you had
haven't
50.
seen-
I think you have 60 people. The last Paula mentioned to me. And
That's good.
She's
That's
sold
good.
tickets and the whole
Yep.
deal. She's really helped. It's helped me out to kind of make sure we know we've got some
right.
money coming in.
And what
So-
building is yours in?
We're in the
Right
sewing.
next to yours down here. The
What's
old
it
sewing
called?
room. Remember the dining hall, and then
I
you had
do.
the kitchen and the sewing area. So the dining hall was tore down when this quit being used by the public schools.
Okay.
About 2000, because it had termites. It was an old Quonset hut that had been moved down from Springfield from the Evangel College campus.
Is that right?
The dining hall was.
Did not know
So they
that.
tore that down, but the sewing room that had been added on in the 60s and the kitchen that had been added on in the 60s were kept, and then a wall put in, and so we've saved those buildings, and that's where they're going to be. It's a nice.
Yeah.
We actually call it our fitness building. We have
Oh.
they do yoga in there, and there's a lady that teaches dance and exercise dance, and then we have some weight equipment and stuff in there. So it's a good little.
This whole building, I watched your one where you did the tour
Yeah,
and everything,
yeah.
because we had kind of a unique situation. We were in seventh, and I'll forget the names wrong. We were in seventh grade at what you call the Webster building.
where we went to junior high.
Yeah. And then we came over here for eighth grade.
Right.
And then we went to the new.
Right. So you went here 1 year.
1 year, and then we went to the other. But some of my most fond memories is back when she was in school and watching the basketball games in the gym.
Oh, yeah.
She was in stage band.
Yeah.
And I just loved the fact that, you had the game going on, and then all of a sudden the curtains flew open and they just kicked off. And they would play and it was just such a ta-da.
Sweet
type-
Georgia Brown.
Right.
It was. We've talked about that on this show.
Right.
And how, if you didn't experience that, you would not understand it. But the acoustics in the old gym then, when it was filled with people, and when you walked in the front door, the smell of popcorn,
Yep.
because the
Yep.
FFA guys were popping
Concession
popcorn
was
right
right
there, in the
there,
front.
right? Yeah.
And the concession stand, and
Yeah.
then
I
and
can
then
smell
you
it
and then,
now.
and then you had in the hallways you had the old fathers and uncles and
Yep.
granddads smoking.
Yep. Yep.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes.
And in
So,
the bathrooms.
so
too.
that mix was in there in the bathroom.
And just the old smell of the old building.
And altogether, it was an experience.
yes,
But
yes.
the biggest thing about it was the stage band, no question about it. When they would hit that,
Oh, yeah.
Sweet Georgia Brown or
Yep.
Hawaii 5-0,
Yep.
Oh
Yep.
and
gosh.
those curtains
horse.
flew open, and here the boys would run out in their satin warm-up suits.
Yep. Yep.
And they'd start shooting layups, you
Yep.
know, and
Running
to the
kind of in a
beat.
curve.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
nothing like it. And we were, I was obviously freshman or sophomore, but even when I was in junior high, or like you said,
yeah,
younger like you
yeah.
were as kids,
Yeah.
everybody came to the basketball.
Well, and the
Right,
pep
right.
club all sat together
Yeah, yeah.
in our blazers.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It
The
was
other cool
unbelievable.
thing, the other cool experience I had was after we after I went to high school, we didn't have a theater or we didn't have a stage over there, theater, and I was in theater
At the high school.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
shout out to my two favorite instructors, Greg Zeller, D. Lewis, of course. So, and because I was in a lot of theater productions,
Right.
and we came back over here because we did our productions over here,
Yeah.
and we did all the lighting and
Right.
and did all the stage work and everything, and then did the productions and be here till 10, 11 o'clock
Right.
at night practicing
Right.
and rehearsing and stuff like that, and then going back over there, and I just that room, that whole area just has such strong.
Yeah. Well, be sure, and if you haven't been through it in years.
Yeah, I got my skates. I'll be skating tonight.
Okay, good. Open skating, and the arcade's open. The Red Rose Arcade, which is a fun
Are you
time
going
as well.
to make a tour?
If you want to, I'll be glad to.
I think.
If you want to gather up some of your classmates, or tell them, hey, Lyndall takes on a tour whenever you want to go. Tell us when.
Well, you.
Tell me when.
Whenever you have time, right? If you want to say after the live stream, maybe.
You'll probably want to get
after
your dinner,
the live stream
get your dinner out of the way and stuff.
Oh yeah, and shout out to
You
Sheila's.
can text me or holler at me.
Sheila's
I'll be
catering.
around. Yeah, you're catering a meal, so Sheila's.
Not a whole meal, but
And then
we
you
got-
guys, I think you are
We're
too.
catering. Yeah, we're catering.
So-
We've got fried chicken.
There
And
you
blackberry cobbler. I'm very
Yours-
excited
yours
about
is
that.
Sheila's too, I think.
Is it?
I
No, I
think
didn't
so.
hear
I
where it
believe
was
so.
from, but
And then we have the food trucks out
Yep.
back for those that aren't in those classes. And then the class of 85 and 90 are both gathering on the field and under the tents.
Great.
85 is my
great.
brother Barth's
Yeah,
class,
right,
and
Barth, yeah.
and Stacy Atkinson is in that class, and then 90 is actually Bill Walker's daughter-in-law Anita, Tim's or Andy's wife.
Andy's, yeah.
She's in that class. I'm not sure who all else. She's the one that made the contact. So
Well, you've
it's
got
going to be a fun night. It really is. And we got 4 minutes. It's hard to believe the time's already up, but.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I'm glad you're coming to Marshfield. Man, that's going to be awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
It can't come soon enough.
That's
For
great.
me.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. But
All I need's a house.
well,
Anybody selling? Let us know.
they're not getting cheaper. I can tell
Yeah,
you, it's
right. No
unbelievable. And we've talked about this, but Marshfield, we're on the verge of an explosion.
It
When
looks.
you look at Rogersville and you look at Stratford, have you noticed going from Marshfield to Springfield?
Yes.
All of the growth
Yeah.
in the Stratford area.
Yeah.
And they've also got apartment buildings. They've got housing.
I
Bucky's.
stopped at the
Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's, yeah.
Had to do it.
It's and it's
Yeah,
heading
it's-
this way.
it's crazy.
So we're
I think, but what's crazy is I think that was all thought through way back when we were kids. That's why we were on 44.
Yeah,
We were
yeah.
everything they expected
Right.
that to, and it just seems like it just
right.
really took its time
The
for that
traffic
to
is
happen.
awful.
Yeah.
It's getting
Yeah.
more metropolitanized, all
Right.
the time.
Here in
Well,
town,
we didn't,
Well, from here to Springfield on 44, the traffic.
it's not
we-
big enough.
and we didn't have a darn stoplight whenever we were growing up either.
I know. it's
Not
still-
one stoplight. Now they're everywhere.
Yeah, the spur drive at 3:30 on an afternoon, when school's in, it backs all the way up to
Solid.
all the way up to the
Yeah,
schools.
I
It does it.
I
We
bet.
talked about the townhouse. Talked about where we got our work ethics between D. Lewis. I mean, our father,
Did you
of
work
course.
at townhouse?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom was the best employer.
Yeah.
He taught us how to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
We sort of already knew how to work, but if you didn't, you'd learn it.
There was
Yeah.
a lot of kids that got started.
I was on the Pizza Hut side.
Were you?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much. We've
Yeah,
had a
that's fine.
blast.
Well, thanks for coming in early. And I guess we'll get up and get out there and make sure things are. I got to hang an American flag on the stage. I got to
Yep.
still do that.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
I've got to get a banner up on my new.
Yeah, yeah. Well, your room's ready. I was in there this morning and made sure it was all
I'm going to go ahead and load
chilling
in.
down. And yeah, you go ahead and do what you want to do. And
All right.
but anyway, thank you all for tuning in, and thank Kris and Miles for coming in today. It's been great, and we will see you soon. Maybe next week, maybe not. Depends on if I've got something else going on in my life. But thanks for tuning in and watching Marshfield Old School Times, and watch the Marshfield Web TV tonight if you want to see some of these folks we've talked about. So, thank you all. Have a good day.